Greetings, salutations, felicitations, etc., etc., etc. Ferrari Man 601 back again. In short, YouTube copyright regulations are becoming more and more obscure, complicated, and draconian. The reason for the absence of a vocal presence from me on YouTube for the past 6 months was 3 copyright infringements, 3 community guidelines strikes that all were given to me in the space of a couple hours on Christmas morning, ironically enough. So I woke up to that in my inbox, and they alleged that I had misleading titles and misleading thumbnails and things on a whole bunch of R-Factor videos that I put up approximately 4 years ago. So all of these things just existed peacefully and didn't bother anybody for about 4 years, and then all of a sudden they violated some sort of community guidelines. They all got took down. I didn't get to appeal them, and I was barred from monetization, which I don't really do anyway, as well as uploading videos longer than 15 minutes in length for the last 6 months. So that's the reason for my sporadic YouTube presence in the last 6 months, and apologies to my loyal subscribers. However, all of those strikes have now expired as of July 1st, and I'm back. So here we are in R-Factor 2. I've already put up a couple R-Factor 2 videos because I've just started to experiment with it. I know I'm about a year and a half behind the curve on all of this, but I stayed away from R-Factor 2 while it was still in the earlier stages of beta, just so they could iron out some of the kinks and all of that good stuff. Also, we've got some pretty good third-party content out there now in terms of cars and tracks. However, we're going to be showing you some standard hardware today. We've got the Formula Renault 3.5 car here, and we're at Montreal, which is an ISI track, but it's not standard with the R-Factor 2 release. You've got to download it later on after you activate and all of that good stuff. But anyway, here we are. Just want to talk to you a little bit about impressions of R-Factor 2 and also the sort of content that you can be expecting from me in the upcoming weeks and months. So without further ado, we'll get the engine fired up and we'll just drive around here, and some mindless rambling shall ensue. Now, when one downloads the R-Factor 2 demo, one of the only cars you can drive in the demo, actually the only cars you can drive, are the Formula Renault 3.5 and the Corvette C6R GT car. So the Formula Renault 3.5 is very much run-of-the-mill vanilla R-Factor 2 content. However, those of you familiar with R-Factor 1 will be able to tell quite quickly that we've got a pretty big graphical improvement, both in terms of the crispness of all the textures and all of the lines of the mesh and all of that kind of stuff. Very, very crisp indeed. However, what is much more impressive to me are the vastly improved physics and tire model that we've got here in R-Factor 2. Again, I don't have much experience with it, but already it's left a very big impression. The physics, for the first time, the physics engine has been updated to take into account things like ambient temperature, fluctuation, wind speed and direction, chassis flex, and probably the biggest improvement of all, the tire model. On open wheelers, it's actually quite dramatic, the effects of the new tire model, visually. Because the tires, rather than being treated like these rigid rubber blocks on the end of the wheels, for the first time, they're actually being treated as dynamic, semi-rigid structures, in the sense that the tires are flexing under load, both from the steering and from aerodynamics on aero-sensitive cars like this with lots of downforce. Their behavior varies according to temperature, pressure, And for the first time, we've got flat spotting, which is something that I, for one, have not experienced in a sim before. Even though I've been involved with sim racing for a number of years now, this is the first time that we've got tires which are actually beginning to behave like one would expect a real tire to act. So this is a huge improvement over anything that's been commercially available so far. And apologies for any choppiness that you're seeing. We are getting some frame rate loss here. That's why I'm not going to be pushing this thing hard at all. But I just want to give you a sense of the visuals, the sounds, and all of that stuff. The sounds are also a big improvement over R Factor 1. Not in terms of the quality of the sounds themselves, but in the way in which you hear them. Things are very, very much multi-channel now, and there's very much a surround sound effect, a Doppler effect, echoes, reverberations, things like that. You really get an immersive sense from the sounds now. I don't know if you'll hear it so much in the Formula Renault, but in a lot of the louder cars, the higher-pitched Formula cars, you'll hear the reverberations as you're going through different sections of the track, like through tunnels, under bridges, or past big grandstands. You'll hear reverberation as you change gear and things like that, and it's just adds a little bit more to that sense of authenticity, and it's something that I really like. Also, another thing that I'm liking very much is the more accurate simulation of different subsystems on the car. R-Factor has always been, in my opinion, cutting edge in terms of simulating just the some of the more mundane interfaces with the car, like the ignition, starter, and things like that. However, I've not driven any cars that have this feature yet, but supposedly DRS has been integrated, as well as for the first time I ever encountered this in a sim, anti-stall. I'll demonstrate anti-stall to you right now. Drop it into neutral and we'll stop the car. I believe it's only this car, the Formula Renault 3.5 and the Marussia MR02, that have anti-stall enabled by default. But, for example, if you're at the start of a race, or if you're leaving the pit lane or whatever, and you let the clutch out too quickly, or you haven't given it enough throttle or something, drop it into first gear, and all of a sudden you'll get anti-stall activated. So what'll happen is I'm in first gear and I'm not on the clutch at all. What happens is it just cuts the clutch in again to keep you from stalling. So again, watch this. There's the anti-stall, not on the clutch. Back into neutral and pull away as normal. Normally the way that you would deactivate anti-stall would be, we'll trigger it again here. Still in first gear, just bring the clutch in, and then pull away as normal. You don't even have to touch anything with the gearbox. And as far as I'm aware, that's how anti-stall actually works in real life on cars such as this. So it's just another little bit of authenticity that ISI have integrated into their new title. Also, you can hear those backfire sound effects going on behind me. Very nice. And I'm just getting an indicator here that the rear flap system is now enabled. For some reason, traction control was on. I don't want traction control. I guess I've done 2 laps, and that's when DRS would activate. However, I don't have a button assigned for DRS. Plus, I don't think the Formula Renault 3.5 has DRS anyway. But of course, on cars that would feature it, be able to use it right now. This is actually my first time driving on this version of Montreal, so I've not yet encountered the DRS system coming in. Also, in terms of the way things feel, the force feedback, I'm still using my Logitech G27 that I've been using for a number of years now. Still running great, and the feel straight away, without even really touching the settings, so much of an improvement over R-Factor 1. I mean, with the Real Feel plug-in and things like that, R-Factor 1 could feel pretty good, but this is convincing as all hell straight away. Definitely very satisfied. You can feel things like the aero load as you build up speed and downforce increases. Feel the gear changes, and of course you feel the load in the steering as you load it up through high-speed corners. And naturally, you feel things like bumps in the road. Had a frame rate loss right there at a critical moment. Again, that's why I'm not pressing on too much with this. And again, I hope that all of this process is okay for you, so that it's not unwatchable. But yeah, I'm getting a good freeze frame every 10 seconds or so. And again, all of that is due to my screen capture software going on here. I normally get great frame rates with R-Factor 2, so a little perplexed, but oh well. Back into the pits. Of course, things like the pit lane speed limiter, which have been here since R-Factor 1, still simulated and still controlled manually, unlike a lot of other titles out there. And your customization abilities regarding all of your controls and your button layouts and everything, still top-notch. So in any event, there is my preliminary look at R-Factor 2, and just giving you a little bit of an idea of what I want to do moving forward. Also, you can just see graphically, details on the meshes and the textures moved on so much. Not quite on Assetto Corsa level, but I mean, near as makes no difference. So in any event, yeah, I'm back on YouTube, and that's just some of the things that I've been doing, and things that you could expect to see in the future are going to be more in-depth R-Factor 2 reviews of the type that I did this time last year, with voiceover and live action. Also, some Assetto Corsa car reviews, as well as some races in R-Factor 2, Assetto Corsa, and of course, probably R-Factor 1 as well. So thank you very much for sticking it out with me through my probationary period, and I'll see you soon.